My name is Irene Nelson, 28 years old, and I will never forget the night my world completely turned upside down. It was the grand opening of my family's steakhouse in Omaha, a night that should have been filled with pride and celebration. The room echoed with clinking glasses and strained smiles, but a heavy tension lingered in the air. My father, his face flushed with anger, pointed straight at me in front of everyone. "Get out and never come back," he roared. My mother raised her glass with a mocking smirk, her eyes as cold as ice. I froze, heart pounding, as every gaze turned toward me. Without another word, I walked out the door, slamming shut behind me, vowing never to return. Out on the empty street, the bitter night wind whipped against my face, yet inside I felt a strange sense of relief, as if a burden had finally been lifted, though it came with an indescribable pain. Weeks later, my cousin called, his voice trembling. "Your parents are in big trouble." Leaning back in my chair, I calmly replied, "I know. So what drove them into such deep trouble? If you were in my place, would you choose to forgive or turn your back forever?" Share your thoughts in the comments below. I wasn't always the one walking away from chaos. Growing up in Omaha, Nebraska, our family was the face of Nelson's Steakhouse, a local legend where folks came for juicy ribeyes and warm smiles. But behind the polished menus and sizzling grills, my home was a pressure cooker. My dad ran the show like a drill sergeant, barking orders at staff and us kids alike. He'd slam his fist on the table if I got a B instead of an A, saying, "We're Nelsons, we don't settle." My mom, always draped in designer scarves, cared more about looking perfect than being present. She'd flash a smile at customers but snap at me for scuffing my shoes. Their expectations piled on me like a heavy coat I couldn't shake off. My older sister was different. She dyed her hair purple, pierced her nose, and declared herself an artist by 16. She'd vanish for weeks, chasing gigs at music festivals, leaving me to carry the family's image. I was the golden child, the one who had to shine. Straight A's, debate team captain, volunteer at the church food drive. Every achievement was a brick in the wall of their approval. But it was never enough. Dad would nod, then point out how I could have done better. Mom would glance up from her wine glass, muttering about my plain outfits. I learned early that love came with strings attached. The steakhouse was their pride, a symbol of success they flaunted to neighbors and friends. They'd host big parties there, showing off new chandeliers or imported leather booths, while I memorized orders and scrubbed tables after school. I didn't mind the work, it felt like contributing. But every time I brought home a report card or a trophy, Dad would say, "Good now, keep it up." Mom would add, "Don't embarrass us." Their voices echoed in my head, pushing me to be perfect to hold up the Nelson name. By high school, I was juggling AP classes, extracurriculars, and shifts at the restaurant. My sister, barely around, would breeze in for holidays, her paint-stained jeans clashing with Mom's pristine tablecloths. She'd roll her eyes at Dad's lectures, and I envied her freedom. Once I overheard her arguing with Mom, saying, "I'm not your puppet." I wished I could say the same. Instead, I smiled, nodded, and kept going, believing that if I worked hard enough, I'd earn their real love, not just their approval. Looking back, I see how their expectations shaped me. I wasn't just Irene, I was the Nelson daughter, the one who couldn't fail. The steakhouse wasn't just a business, it was a stage where we played perfect for the world. But cracks were forming, ones I didn't notice until they swallowed me whole. I stepped into a new chapter, eager to leave the weight of Omaha behind. At 18, I enrolled at the University of Nebraska, diving into accounting with a hunger for independence. College was a breath of fresh air, late-night study sessions, crowded lecture halls, and the thrill of carving my own path. I aced my classes, joined the finance club, and felt like I was finally more than just the Nelson daughter. By my junior year, I landed an internship at a local firm, crunching numbers and dreaming of a life where I called the shots. In Lincoln, I found my people. My best friend Stacy Brooks was a firecracker with a knack for spotting patterns in data and in people. We'd grab coffee at a quirky shop downtown, laughing over spreadsheets and her terrible taste in rom-coms. Then there was my boyfriend, Michael Scott, a quiet engineering major with a dry sense of humor. He'd tease me about my color-coded planners, but his steady presence grounded me. For the first time, I felt seen for who I was, not what I could do for someone else. After graduation, I landed a full-time job at a mid-sized accounting firm in Lincoln. My days were filled with client meetings, tax audits, and the quiet pride of building something mine. I rented a small apartment, decorated it with thrift store finds, and started saving for a house, a dream that felt tangible. Stacy and I would spend weekends hiking at Pioneers Park planning our futures. Michael and I took road trips chasing sunsets across the plains. Life felt open, full of possibility. But my parents had other plans. The phone calls started during my senior year. Dad's gruff voice, Mom's clipped tone. "The steakhouse needs you," Dad would say, his words heavy with expectation. "You're a Nelson, don't forget that." Mom would chime in, her voice sharp. "We've done so much for you, it's time to give back." They'd call late at night, interrupting my study sessions or dinners with Michael. Each conversation dragged me back to Omaha, to that suffocating role of the perfect daughter. I tried to brush it off. I'd tell myself they were just proud, just checking in. But the calls grew more frequent, more insistent. Dad would mention the restaurant's tough times, his tone vague but urgent. Mom would drop hints about their sacrifices, how they'd given up everything for me and my sister. I'd hang up my stomach, twisting, feeling the pull of their expectations. 2 years into my job at the accounting firm, I got a call from Dad that changed everything. His voice was low, almost a growl. "The steakhouse is in trouble, Irene. We owe the bank $7,000. If we don't pay, we'll lose everything." I sat at my desk staring at a spreadsheet, my heart sinking. Nelson's Steakhouse wasn't just a business, it was their legacy, the anchor of our family's name. I pictured the bustling dining room, the loyal customers, the neon sign glowing over Omaha. "We're counting on you," Dad added, his tone heavy with expectation. I didn't hesitate. "I'll cover it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I wired $7,000 from my savings, the money I'd earmarked for a down payment on a house. It hurt, but I told myself it was temporary, a one-time fix to save the family. Dad promised they'd recover, but weeks later he called again. "We need a little more help," he said. "Just $1,500 a month until we're back on track." I swallowed hard, glancing at my budget. That was half my rent, my dream of owning a home slipping further away. But I set up the monthly transfers, convincing myself it was my duty. Meanwhile, Mom's spending told a different story. On my rare visits to Omaha, I noticed the steakhouse's new polished oak bar gleaming under fancy pendant lights. Mom strutted around in tailored blazers, her wrists jingling with new gold bracelets. "Business is picking up," she'd say, waving a manicured hand at the revamped patio with its stone fire pit. I bit my tongue, but the numbers didn't add up. My transfers were supposed to keep the restaurant afloat, not fund Mom's shopping sprees. Once I overheard her bragging to a customer about upgrading the vibe with custom curtains. I stared at the ornate fabric, my stomach twisting. That was my money, my future hanging on those windows. I tried talking to Dad. "The restaurant's fine now, right?" I asked during a tense dinner at their house. He shrugged, cutting into his steak. "It's a tough market. We need to stay competitive." Mom chimed in, her smile tight. "You're doing so well, Irene. We're proud of you for helping out." Her praise felt like a hook, pulling me deeper into their world. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. My savings account was shrinking, and my dream of a house felt like a fantasy. Stacy saw through it. Over lunch in Lincoln, she leaned across the table, her eyes sharp. "They're using you, Irene. That new bar, those bracelets, you're paying for it all." I brushed her off, but her words lingered. Michael was less subtle. "You're killing yourself for them," he said one night, his voice low as we sat on my couch. They don't even say thank you. I wanted to argue to defend my parents, but I couldn't. Every month I sent $1,500, and every month Mom showed up with something new, a designer purse, a sleek watch. I felt like a cog in their machine, spinning endlessly to keep their world turning. I kept hoping they'd stop asking that the restaurant would stabilize, but the calls kept coming, each one a reminder that I was still the dutiful daughter tied to their dreams instead of my own. I'd stare at my bank statements, watching my future drain away, and wonder how much longer I could keep this up. The cracks in my resolve were starting to show. For 3 years, I'd been sending money to keep Nelson's Steakhouse afloat, but the weight of it was wearing me down. My parents' demands didn't stop. They grew sharper, more personal. During a rare Sunday dinner in Omaha, Mom set her wine glass down and fixed her eyes on me. "Irene, your job sounds so ordinary," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Filing taxes all day. You could aim higher." I clenched my fork, forcing a smile. Then she turned to Michael, who'd joined us. "And your boyfriend? He's sweet, but so boring. Don't you want someone with ambition?" Michael's face tightened, but he stayed quiet, cutting his steak with slow, deliberate slices. I wanted to snap back, but Dad's stern glance kept me silent. Back in Lincoln, Stacy dropped a bombshell. We were at our usual coffee shop, her laptop open to a spreadsheet she'd been digging into for a client. "Irene, I found something," she said, her voice low. "Your parents took out another credit line on the restaurant. $20,000. They didn't tell you." My stomach dropped. I'd been pouring my savings into their business, and they were racking up secret debt. Stacy slid her laptop toward me, showing the bank records she'd accessed through a mutual contact. "They're playing you," she said, her eyes fierce. I stared at the numbers, my hands trembling. All my sacrifices, my house. My plans were being swallowed by their lies. I confronted Dad over the phone that night. "Is it true? Did you borrow more money?" I asked, my voice shaking. He paused, then sighed. "It's just business, Irene. You wouldn't understand." His dismissal stung like I was still a kid who couldn't handle the truth. Mom jumped in on speaker, her tone icy. "You're overreacting. We're building something for the family." I hung up my chest tight with anger. They weren't just using my money, they were hiding their schemes behind it. Michael was reaching his limit too. One evening, as we walked along the Platte River, he stopped and faced me. "Irene, you're letting them control you," he said, his voice low but firm. "Every month you're stress-checking your bank account, skipping plans with me to save money. It's killing us." I flinched, knowing he was right. Our dates had become rare, our conversations clipped. I'd canceled a weekend getaway because I couldn't afford it after sending my parents another payment. "I don't know how to stop," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. Michael's eyes softened, but he shook his head. "You need to choose them, or us." I lay awake that night replaying his words. Stacy's warning echoed too, her voice cutting through my denial. My parents' criticism wasn't new. Mom had always picked at my choices, from my clothes to my career. But now their secret loan and her jab at Michael felt like a betrayal. I'd given up so much to keep their dream alive, and they were tearing down mine. I wanted to believe they'd change, that they'd see me as more than a resource. But the truth was sinking in. They never would. That realization was about to push me to my breaking point. The grand opening of Nelson's Steakhouse's new branch in Omaha was supposed to be a triumph, a glittering showcase of my parents' ambition. I arrived in a simple black dress, my nerves frayed from months of tension. The dining room sparkled with crystal chandeliers, waiters weaving through a crowd of local bigwigs and loyal customers. I forced a smile, playing the dutiful daughter one last time, but my heart wasn't in it. I scanned the room, hoping to avoid another lecture from Mom or Dad, when my cousin Patricia pulled me aside. "Irene, I heard about your loan," Patricia said, her voice low but carrying over the chatter. "You paid off their debt, didn't you? That's incredible." Her words hit like a spotlight, exposing the secret I'd kept buried. Heads turned, conversations faltered. I froze, my face burning as Dad's eyes locked onto mine from across the room. His jaw clenched, his steps heavy as he stormed over. "What did you say?" he demanded, glaring at Patricia. She stammered, confused. "I just meant Irene's help with the restaurant." "Enough!" Dad roared, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Get out, Irene. Get out and never come back." The room went silent, glasses pausing mid-clink. My heart pounded, my legs rooted to the spot. Mom stepped forward, her wine glass raised, a smirk curling her lips. "You heard him?" she said, her tone icy, her eyes glinting with something cruel. The crowd parted their stares, boring into me. Patricia's face paled, her hand reaching for me, but I pulled away. I wanted to scream, to call out their lies, the secret loans, the endless demands, the way they'd drained me dry. But my throat tightened, words failing me. I saw Dad's red face, Mom's cold amusement, and something snapped inside. This wasn't my family, it was a trap I'd been too blind to see. I turned, my heels clicking on the polished floor, and walked out. The heavy glass door slammed behind me, the sound echoing in my ears. I stood in the parking lot, the Nebraska night air sharp against my skin, and made a choice. No more payments. No more saving them. I was done. Driving back to Lincoln, my hands gripped the wheel, my mind racing. I thought of the years I'd given them, my savings, my dreams, my peace, all for their approval. Patricia's slip had ripped the veil off, showing everyone what I'd been hiding. My parents didn't value me, they used me. Dad's rage wasn't about shame, it was control slipping away. Mom's smirk wasn't just cruel, it was triumph, like she'd won some twisted game. I pulled over, my chest heaving, and stared at my phone. No calls, no apologies, just silence. I opened my banking app and canceled the monthly transfer of $1,500. My finger hovered over the confirm button, then pressed it. A weight lifted, but it came with a pang of guilt. I pushed it down. They'd made their choice, and now I'd made mine. The steakhouse, their pride, their legacy, it wasn't my burden anymore. I started the car, the headlights cutting through the dark, and drove toward a life I could finally call my own. That night changed everything for me. Weeks after my phone stayed silent, no calls, no texts from my parents. I was free, but the cost was heavy. Then came the news, like a punch I saw coming but couldn't dodge. A colleague in Omaha texted me a headline: "Nelson's Steakhouse closes as bank seizes property." The bank had foreclosed, taking both the original restaurant and the new branch. Years of my savings poured into their dream, gone in a matter of weeks. I sat in my Lincoln apartment staring at the article, my coffee growing cold. The neon sign I'd pictured glowing over Omaha was dark now, the dining room empty. I felt a pang of guilt, but it faded fast. They'd built their empire on my sacrifices, and I wasn't the one who'd let it crumble. Dad's face at the opening, red with rage, flashed in my mind. Mom's smirk lingered too, a reminder of their betrayal. I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on my work, my life, my future. Then one rainy evening, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Dad, his coat soaked, his eyes hollow. "Irene," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard. "I'm sorry. We messed up. The restaurant, it's gone. We need your help to start over." He stepped closer, his hands clasped, almost pleading. I stood frozen, my heart racing. This was the man who'd shouted me out of his life, now begging at my doorstep. "Please," he said. "You're our only chance." I took a deep breath, my voice steady. "You had your chance, Dad. You and Mom chose to lie, to use me. I'm done." His face fell, his shoulders sagging. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I shut the door, my hands trembling, and leaned against it, listening to his footsteps fade in the rain. It hurt, but it was final. I wasn't their lifeline anymore. Days later, another blow landed. A friend from Omaha called, her voice tight with disbelief. Irene, your mom's been claiming unemployment benefits, she said. She's been telling people she's working at the steakhouse, but it's been closed for weeks. I sat down hard, my mind reeling. Cheryl, who'd flaunted designer purses and custom curtains, was faking employment to collect checks. I dug into it, calling a contact at the state office. They confirmed it. Mom had filed for benefits, claiming she was laid off from a business that no longer existed. The audacity hit me like a slap. While I'd drained my savings to save their restaurant, she'd been scheming for extra cash. I called Mom, my anger barely contained. "Is it true?" I asked. "Are you collecting unemployment while pretending to work?" She laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "It's just temporary, Irene. You don't understand how hard it's been." I hung up, her words ringing hollow. She didn't even try to deny it. The woman who'd criticized my job, my life, was playing the system, and I'd been blind to her deceit for too long. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the life I was building in Lincoln. My apartment, my job, my dreams. They were mine, not theirs. Cutting them off wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my worth. I'd spent years chasing their approval, but their lies, Dad's fake remorse, Mom's fraud, showed me the truth. They didn't deserve my loyalty. I blocked their numbers, a final act of defiance, and felt a calm I hadn't known in years. That choice would shape my path forward. Months after cutting ties with my parents, I heard through a mutual friend that Dad had taken a job stocking shelves at a local supermarket in Omaha. Mom, meanwhile, was answering phones at a call center, her days of designer purses and restaurant grandeur long gone. They'd moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment, a far cry from the sprawling house I'd grown up in. Part of me wondered if they'd learned anything, but I didn't dwell on it. Their choices weren't my burden anymore. In Lincoln, my life was blooming. After years of saving, I closed on a small house, a cozy 2-bedroom with a porch, perfect for morning coffee. The day I signed the papers, Michael stood beside me, his grin wide as he handed me the keys. "You did this," he said, his voice warm with pride. We'd weathered the storm of my family's demands, and our bond was stronger for it. We spent evenings painting the walls, picking out furniture, and planning a future that was ours alone. For the first time, I felt like I was building something that couldn't be taken away. I didn't forgive my parents, and I wasn't sure I ever would. Their lies, the secret loans, Mom's unemployment fraud, Dad's hollow apologies had shown me who they were. I'd spent years trying to be the daughter they wanted, sacrificing my dreams to prop up theirs. But walking away from the steakhouse that night, I'd chosen myself. It wasn't easy. Guilt crept in sometimes, whispering that I'd abandoned them. But I'd learned a hard truth. Love doesn't mean letting people use you. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was survival. Michael and I hosted a housewarming party, filling our new home with laughter and friends. Stacy came, her sharp wit lighting up the room as she teased Michael about his questionable grilling skills. The air was warm, the music soft, and for once, I wasn't looking over my shoulder waiting for a call from Omaha. I stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky and felt a peace I hadn't known was possible. My parents' world had crumbled, but mine was just beginning. Looking back, I saw the lesson clearly. Family is supposed to lift you up, not pull you down. For years, I'd let Dad's expectations and Mom's manipulations define me, thinking that was what love looked like. But real love, mine for Michael, my friendship with Stacy, my commitment to myself demanded respect, not sacrifice. Setting boundaries with my parents wasn't about cutting them out. It was about protecting my dignity, my happiness, and the life I deserved. I'd spent too long trying to save them, only to realize the only person I needed to save was me. That lesson carried me forward, a compass for the years ahead.